I wanted to, begin just for those that don't know, Dolores Huerta, right? She co-founded the Farm Workers Union with Cesar Chavez. At 90 years old, is a full-time volunteer with our organization, training organizers, and it's as strong as ever. So wanted to paint the picture of Kern County, where we are based. Not only is it the birthplace of the United Farm Workers Union, but also, and now I'm losing track of time, and I want to say maybe it was 2015 or 16 that The Guardian did major research on all the deaths in the hands of law enforcement, and Kern County was actually #1 in the entire country for deaths in the hands of law enforcement, not only by the Kern County Sheriff's Department, but also by Bakersfield Police Department combined. The California Department of Justice recently concluded a 2 to 3 year investigation, which resulted in a settlement. And, we have just begun that process of trying to get, community engagement and input on how the Sheriff's Department specifically will reform many of their bad habits. So it was so great to hear the work from Ms. McGee, and hope to learn more and connect about that. What I will focus on today is our work that's more on the grassroots level. And I'm going to share a presentation. With our education equity work, we have the story I'm going to tell specifically on Kern High School District, which is the largest high school district in California. And to paint the picture, you should know that up until 2009, one of the schools had a rebel mascot, a Confederate image, in a high school that's majority Black and Latinx. There are street names after Confederate figures across the school site. And there's also, to this day, a school named Plantation Elementary. So even though we are in progressive California, Kern County feels more like a different state entirely. Our journey into the education justice organizing began in 2011. What happened is that here at Kern High School District, we have 40,000 students, but the demographics of teachers are not reflected in the student population. 65% are Black and Brown students compared to 60% of the teachers who are white, and the percentage is even higher for administrators in the district. So in 2009 to 2010, the Federal Department of Education published a report showing the discriminatory practices of the district, showing huge disparities for Black and Brown students compared to their white peers. In that same year, 2009 to 2010, over 2,500 students were expelled from this one school district. 90% were expelled for non-mandatory offenses, meaning it wasn't related to drugs or assault, which fall under the zero tolerance. And big surprise, right? The majority of these students were Black and Latinx. So at this time, parents were reaching out to the Dolores Huerta Foundation. They were seeking out legal advice, and now we had data to validate their lived experiences. So DHF led the creation of the Kern Education Justice Collaborative. We are a network of community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, legal entities, and parents, students, and educators. So our strategies include community outreach and education. We teach, know your rights, and learning about school board governance. We have a communication strategy, raising awareness about the issue about issues, and we purchase billboards, we do op-eds, share the stories of lived experiences by those who are most impacted. We do budget advocacy. Luckily, at this time, Governor Brown enacted what is called the Local Control Funding Formula, which became law, giving the community the opportunity to have voice in how the district allocates funding for high need students. Specifically, we're talking about English language learners, foster youth, and low income students. So in 2013, the Kern Education Justice Collaborative worked to divert funding from police and schools into programs to improve school climate and increase parent engagement. And then the final strategy is a policy and litigation. In 2014, the legal agencies filed a lawsuit on behalf of Dolores Huerta Foundation and other organizations and 14 families who experienced this push out. After 3 years, we reached a historic settlement. It was the first of its kind, which created a system of accountability that required the district to provide disaggregated data and progress reports to the community via community forums. Kern High School District was forced to do an overhaul on their disciplinary practices at the district and was also required to provide data and progress reports, like I've said. They also had to implement PBIS in schools, that's positive behavioral intervention supports, mandated to hire Black and Latinx educators. KEJC was also successful in diverting $4 million from police and schools to restorative justice and improving school climate. The district also created 11 parent centers based on our advocacy, and the biggest news is that there's been a significant decrease in the number of expulsions. So if you remember, it was 2,500. Well, in 2019, 10 years later, the number of expulsions went down to 20 students. So here, our timeline is very important because it shows the trajectory of the intentional organizing and strategizing, recognizing that although this lawsuit is historic and the first of its kind, it was not going to change everything in the district. We've experienced many challenges, and the district tried to keep our parents from voicing their concerns at community forums. The community has had to continuously pressure the district to follow through on the agreement. For example, in this settlement agreement, it just sunsetted, and the district did not make progress on hiring diverse staff. So that's an issue that we're still contending with. So now we're working to develop the community's consciousness around movement building, that regardless of policy, we cannot get rid of the harms of the educational system until we address the root cause, right? So we know that systemic racism that exists in our schools to oppress Black and Brown people. Our next steps are to defund the Kern High School District Police. We are working on Black and Brown solidarity. We are a segregated community. And the school district also has 6 nurses for 40,000 students, but funds an entire police department for $4 million a year for one high school district. Vecinos Unidos and the Dolores Huerta Foundation Youth are active in 17 school districts. We work in 4 counties, that's Kern, Tulare, Fresno, and Los Angeles County in the Antelope Valley area. Dolores Huerta Foundation provides support to each education committee through the strategies of organizing, advocacy, and coalition building, parent and youth education empowerment, and leadership development. And I'll also say that many of the parents in our own committee have since ran and won school board positions. So through this advocacy, they realize, hey, I could be the one up there making this decision. That's my neighbor, right? And so we are so thankful for that. Okay, so for our budget advocacy, Vecinos and Youth participated in a series of trainings on the local control accountability plan that's related to the local control funding formula that I mentioned earlier. So what we do is we actually print out these budgets that are hundreds of pages long. We also mandate that they be translated and printed in Spanish as well for Spanish-speaking parents and youth. And we go through and we analyze these budgets page by page, millions and millions of dollars, right, on the line. And through this process, Vecinos and Youth create budget recommendations and messaging. So in 2019, we treated it as a campaign, throughout all of these districts where we work. And vecinos and youth, they hosted town halls to inform their communities about the LCAP process. We invited school district board, administrators, and staff to hear their recommendations. And then we also created this messaging, right, where you can see these lawn signs that were created asking for counselors and nurses in our schools now. And so as you drove through the towns, you would see these lawn signs on fences and throughout the community. The vecinos and youth gathered 1,200 signatures, excuse me, to garner support for their LCAP recommendations. And as a result, 42 recommendations were adopted. So a total of 805 vecinos, those Vecinos Unidos are our members, and that means Neighbors United. So the vecinos and the youth, there were over 800 that participated in this campaign across the 17 school districts. And the results and the adoptions, right, the recommendations that were adopted included parent coordinators, cultural performance arts, removing funding for police and schools, providing additional psychologists, counselors, social workers, nurses, having culturally sensitive libraries, parent education classes, and more. So this is, really what we've been doing on the local level. DHF is a part of several regional and statewide coalitions as well. We are co-sponsoring Assembly Bill 610, which encourages schools to adopt non-punitive, supportive, trauma-informed, and health-based approaches to school-related behaviors, increasing educator discretion in determining when to notify law enforcement about a student's school-related behaviors, eliminating prosecution of school staff who fail to report incidents of alleged assaults or physical threats against school employees, and eliminating the criminal penalty for willful disturbance of public schools. That has been our catch-all here in California, and I'm sure in other places. So eliminating the willful disturbance of public schools and public school meetings. Our other legislative work includes the promotion of or advocating for ethnic studies throughout the state, as well as right now, our committees are going to their school districts to promote Dolores Huerta Day. So here in the state of California, April 10th is not an official holiday, but it's recognized as Dolores Huerta Day. And we are also very engaged in redistricting. So this is a continuation of our work on the 2020 census, where we reached 84,000 individuals directly to educate them about the importance of the census. And now we are going back and engaging community members, educating them on the process of redistricting and why it's important. You know, it happens every 10 years, so folks forget, or maybe they're new to this country and don't really understand what this means. And then we're also engaging community residents to help draw and advocate for fair maps. And so we invite you to join our network. We do have, you could also go to joindhf.org and give us your information and keep you connected. We don't send a whole lot of emails, I promise. That concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.